Hey there, it's Boots Owen here. This is a Logik oven, I think. No, I should say it here actually. LBFANB16, but this will be the same for most conventional electric fan ovens. Fan in the back, element up on top, and there's another element in the back, a circular one around that fan. What's the problem? Well, it was tripping the switch when it was on to the grill. So one of these grill settings, the switch, the residual current device in the house on the consumer unit was tripping. So I've removed it from its place in the kitchen, and to do that I just took out two screws, this one here, and then slid it forward and then disconnected the wiring at the back. And if you're not competent to do that job, you're probably not competent to do this next job. So what I'm going to do is take out the element, swap it out for a new element which has arrived in the post today. And I think it's relatively simple. So to get the element out inside, because I think this is what's causing it to trip, there's a screw up here and there's a screw up here, and I'll take them off and then disconnect the connections on the back that are inside the housing. And so the first thing I'll do is get into the housing. So that lifts up and out, and then in here you can see the other ends of the element. So let's look in and make a note of the wires, the colours. We've got a double with black and white on it, and then we've got yellow and yellow. So how do we get these off? So just pull off, yeah, yellow. And you want to be careful because these metal edges on the housing can be quite sharp on the black and yellow. So I'm just going to leave those in that position, and that should be enough. Then let's get inside and take out the screws inside. So then, just looking at the new element, you can see the two brackets here for the screws that hold it onto the roof of the oven, but there's also two holes here, so I've got to get screws out of there. Now they were hidden in the insulation, so we'll go over and have a look for them. So if I root around, yeah, there's one, okay, and there is the other, and they look to be in good condition, which is good. Occasionally screws in places like this will be completely rusted, and if that's the case, it can be an absolute nightmare to get them out. And of course the kit doesn't come with new screws, so they're rusty, but they're okay to come out. They're coming out okay. On really old rusty ovens, these could just snap off for that, so you might need to factor that in. I've got the suspicion that it's going to fall down now, so I'll hold that element. Yep, really wants to leave. There we go. And so before I try to install it, just a quick check to make sure it's a similar shape, and it is. Slightly different aftermarket model, but all the holes are in the same places. Okay, so I've pushed it through and offered in one screw, and tightened that up on the inside, and now it should just be a matter of lining up these holes here. There they are, yeah. Oops. Needs to come to the left a little bit. Of course, my screwdriver isn't magnetic, and these screws are stainless anyway, so they may not be magnetizable. There we go. Now the ideal place to do this would be on the kitchen floor in front of the oven without even disconnecting it, but just making sure that the electricity is turned off. But because of one thing and another, that's not where I'm doing it, it's out in the garage. I'll bring it back in and install it, I guess, for the end of this video. Now this one, is it going in? There it is, it's getting a grip. And while we're in here, let's put these wires back on. So I've got my presumably common neutral over this side, and then on this side the two lives. And that one's not on right yet, but it will be. There we go. And then just pull the insulation back the way it was. Okay, so I've tilted the oven a bit so you can see I've already put in this screw over here, and this one is next, and it really is not very complicated. Although, if it's not getting a grip, I'm going to need to get a bigger screw. That's interesting. So the one that was in it is this one, and it's not getting a purchase. So I'll put in one that's just got a slightly more coarse thread. Yeah, and that's getting a grip. That'll do nicely. So let's get the top back on. So let's just take a moment to think about the element and what went wrong. I could test the resistance in this element, and I think I did, and I found that the resistance was within the ranges of what would be normal. So let's just do that again with a multimeter set to resistance in ohms. Let's put it down there. Resistance across one element, I'm getting 53, and over here I'm getting 53 as well. And that's typical. That kind of resistance would be fine. What happens with elements like this, especially when they get rusty, is that the outer casing, and you can see it here, there's an outer casing of metal, an insulator on the center, and then the element is actually the wire or the metal rod in the center there. When they get rusty, something happens and they can become porous and moisture can go in. And when you heat them up, one way or the other, when you heat them up, the resistance will change. So the only real way to test them is to test them hot, and when they're getting hot. But I'm not going to bother. I have a feeling it's the element because the machine trips when the grill is on, and this is what's on when the grill is on. So the other thing is it's an intermittent fault. I tested it. It failed in the kitchen, but then when I took it outside to the garage to test it, it wouldn't fail again. But I know if I put it back in, eventually it'll fail again. So for the sake of, I think this was 14 or 17 pounds from the internet, then it's just simpler to replace it. So I'm in the kitchen again now. The cable comes in, and then you put your live on the left and your neutral on the right. It says blue and brown, but in my case I've got red and black. Red being live and black being neutral, and then the earth to the bottom. And I've done that, and it's all wired into that little box. Obviously turn the power off before you do that. Now I will offer this up into position. So with the oven back in position, there's just a matter of a couple of screws. All the screws really do is prevent the oven tipping forward that little bit when you go to open the door. So let's see if it works now. Power on. I'll turn this to fan. Lights are on. Fan is on. Thermostat's on. I'll let it get hot, but I'm feeling that's the job done, and it hasn't tripped the switch instantly, which was the symptom before. Questions or comments below, or if you've got any observations about the fact that I'm not an electrician, not a gas installer, not competent to do this job, or anything like that, yeah, leave them below. See you later. So it's been on for about half an hour now, and there's absolutely no issue with it. I've moved it across to the oven setting. You can't really see that in the video, but it's just tipping away nicely. So job well done.